Hey guys, I'm back with something a little bit different. One of the last videos that we posted was the Graph hockey story about what's going on with that company. And it kind of sparked the conversation that I hopefully want to kind of outline in this video and of course down below in the comments section. Now, first thing I've got to say is that Graph video is probably one of the most enjoyable pieces of content that I've been a part of creating for the last couple of years. I really enjoyed making that, and I want to do more of those types of videos going into this year. And of course, while we're on the notion of pricing with hockey equipment, I'd really appreciate it if you could comment down below with how much you are comfortable spending on a stick and also a pair of skates. And in addition to that, if you don't mind, I'd love to know what you spent on your first hockey stick. If you can remember, if you've been playing for a while, that's okay. Not everyone got into playing hockey like in their late 20s or probably early 20s for myself. If you were playing when you were 5 or 6, maybe you might not remember, but if you can remember how much you spent on your first stick and also how much you spent on your first pair of skates, I'd love to see that in the comment section. But let's jump in and let me explain the whole point of this video. Now, with that video, one of the comments that I kept seeing repeated was how much support Graph Hockey had. So much more than I even expected. There's a lot of you that are still in your Graph skates. I saw comments, I've been in my Graph skates for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 20 years. I'm pretty sure someone's been using the same pair of skates for 23 years as well. I'll see if I can find that comment, or some of them and just throw them up on screen, which was awesome to see. But it also sparked a really interesting conversation, because something that I'm constantly being bombarded with is hockey equipment prices are obscene. They're out of control. Now, this is something that I definitely agree with, but I filmed a video that I'll link down below and I'll show on screen as well, that kind of touches on why equipment costs what it costs. There's a lot that goes behind it. Now, a lot of people do just assume this is manufacturers just going over the top with what they can charge. Now, while that definitely plays a part in it, there are a lot of external factors that go behind creating the products that we have today that really do affect the price. It's not just the manufacturers going mad. I filmed a separate video on that I'll link down below, and I'll also have showing on the screen somewhere that you guys can check out if you want to see the full ins and outs of that video. Now, when we come back to the topic of the price of equipment, and also just thinking about the fact that someone was using the same pair of skates for 23 years, a few years ago this was something that was completely normal to do, but today if you gave me a top spec pair of skates from any of the major brands, I doubt that they would last double digits in terms of the years. Now, all of this, thinking about all of this, reminded me about a documentary that I watched quite a few years ago called The Light Bulb Conspiracy, which essentially was about how a light bulb had been burning in a fire station in the USA for over 100 years. The same light bulb had been on for over 100 years and never burnt out. And it begged the question, why over 100 years ago could a light bulb burn continuously every single day for over 100 years and never go out, when modern light bulbs pop and have to be replaced way more frequently? Now, this documentary was essentially discussing the notion of planned obsolescence, which is essentially where a manufacturer makes something for a fixed amount of time, and after that time lapses, the product becomes defective, stops working, and needs to be replaced or repaired, normally replaced. Now, if this doesn't sound like it has anything to do with hockey, just give me a second, because I'll loop it all back around and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, with planned obsolescence, the notion behind that was you have a product, it works for a fixed amount of time, it needs to be replaced. Now, we saw examples of this even in my era, which would have been the iPod scandal. If you guys know the creator Casey Neistat, he filmed a video way before he was a YouTuber, way before YouTube existed, on how if you had an original iPod or one of the first generations of iPods, when the battery went inside the iPod and you called Apple to try and get it fixed or serviced, they told you to just buy another iPod, which was insane. This was essentially planned obsolescence in the 21st century, in modern days that all of us would recognize. Now, while brands and manufacturers have kind of gone away from this notion, it still does exist, because I have conversations with my mum, who's in her 60s, who bought a washing machine when she was a teenager that runs to this day. Things are just not built like they were if you go back quite a number of years. 50, 60 years, stuff today is just not built like that. Now, how does this pertain to hockey? Because how this era of planned obsolescence has kind of been phased out is through the entire notion of an upgrade. Now, you see this with cars, with phones, with trainers, or sneakers if you're in North America. So many things. Essentially, you have last year's model, the manufacturer releases this year's model, and you don't want last year's model anymore, you want this year's model. There might not be anything wrong with last year's model, but you are enticed and incentivized to get the latest and greatest. Now, coming back to hockey, this is exactly what we see every single year. products are released and we are enticed by the manufacturers and also by creators, unfortunately, that are on the internet. I'm definitely one of them, my hands up over here, to buy the next one. And I don't feel like what we do is push you to buy the next one. We just give you the information of new versus old, so you guys can make your mind up about if the changes from the old versus new are worth upgrading. That's why we create these VS videos, because it's so important for us to be able to highlight that the last year's model might only be marginally worse than this year's model, or sometimes it can flip and be the complete other way around, or sometimes it can be no difference whatsoever. Now, when we're on this subject, this is where the whole talk of everything being so expensive and overpriced kicks in. Manufacturers and also ourselves and creators in the hockey space in general are definitely guilty of only focusing on the elite level equipment. That means that you are seeing the $400 sticks, the $1,000 skates, but there are models within the same family. For example, if you're looking at the Hyperlight range from Bauer or the Jet Speed range from CCM, you don't have to go elite level. There are plenty of models below that that would suit probably 90% of players that are watching this video right now. While it's great to have the latest and greatest and the shiniest thing that's just been released, it's not always required. I've done countless videos that explain the player criteria that you need to fall under to be able to be rocking elite level skates. And while I know, especially in beer league hockey, there's always the guy that has all the gear, no idea, which, you know, partly could be said that's also me. But I've said this, and I'm going to be saying this in a future video that will be dropping. Of course, if you're in a position where you can afford to get it, then by all means get it. But this is essentially the messaging behind this video is don't neglect the products below top spec, because unfortunately manufacturers only show promo reels, posters with the elite level players, the NHL players, wearing the latest and greatest in terms of elite level equipment. But there are so many models below that would suit a large volume of people watching this video right now. If you're not on the ice 4+ times a week, if you're not playing incredibly competitive hockey, then, and you're not a really big build, then chances are you probably don't need to go for an elite level pair of skates. We had this conversation with Graf while we were in Switzerland about how so many players today are in skates that are way too stiff for them. And being in a skate that's too stiff for you isn't only going to restrict your ability to perform on the ice, it's also going to restrict the development of key muscles that you need inside your legs to become a competent athlete. In addition to this, it also has a major effect on injuries that you can sustain because you're in something that you don't know how to utilize properly. Having a softer pair of skates will benefit a vast majority of people, meaning you don't have to spend an obscene amount of money that's going to absolutely annihilate your bank balance to be able to get a good pair of skates that's going to allow you to perform to the best of your ability. So coming back all the way around, although today sticks, skates specifically, and also helmets are incredibly expensive, there are so many models below the top and elite spec that you players can get and not have to blow out your bank balances. In addition to this, there are so many brands out there that are surfacing now that are focusing on creating equipment that is much more affordable and sustainable and also attainable for a vast majority of people that are out there. One of the videos that I filmed not too long ago was cheap versus expensive. I did an update video of the one that I filmed over 10 years ago and tried to do like a modern day version take on that. And a top comment that I kept seeing is how I consider a $200 plus or $200 plus pair of skates to be on the cheap side. But when you look at it in today's standards, $200 is around the entry level point for a pair of skates from the major brands. If we're talking True, Bauer and CCM, that's just what it is. And then when you look at the high end side of that, it's around $900 to $1,000 depending on where you are. Now, although that is not cheap, because I remember when I had my first pair of skates, they were sub $150. My second pair of skates was also sub $200. So what is going on with the pricing of skates that's out there today? All of that can be explained in the video that I've got down below that I'll again list up here, where I go into much more detail about what's affecting prices today. But overall, guys, this is just a video to kind of highlight the fact that there are brands out there that are making more attainable, more affordable equipment. I'll link the videos that we've done on them down below, and also a couple of websites to brands that make sticks and also skates that are much more affordable for junior and senior players. Now, in addition to this, please don't forget that although there are the top spec videos that we film, and those are the majority of the videos that we film, because that's what we get requested to produce by yourselves. If you want to see more entry-level equipment, more mid-range equipment, request it down below and I will be producing those videos. But it's also important for me to mention, we really want you guys to watch the videos as well. If a video doesn't get good views, it doesn't get good performance in terms of the YouTube algorithm and analytics, which is all the boring stuff that you guys don't have to think about, it doesn't entice us to create a video of the same nature again. Essentially, we do want to make videos on cheaper and more affordable equipment and more attainable equipment, but it just doesn't translate in terms of views. You guys need to help us out by watching those videos. I'll link a few of them down below that we've already done, because if they start to do more views, then we can focus on those types of equipment and produce more of those videos. Because unfortunately, every time we do something that's just been released, that's elite level, that's the stuff that gets all the attention. The new shiny thing from the mainstream brands, that's what always gets all of the attention. And then when we look at the more attainable, more affordable equipment, that never seems to perform very well. So if you want that type of content, please support it and we'll create more of it. But as always, comment down below, let me know what you want to see next, what brands you want us to cover, what price points you want us to do in terms of sticks, skates, and also protective, and we'll do our best to make those videos happen. But as always, guys, thank you for watching this. Make sure you check out last week's video, which will be down below and also floating about on screen. Don't forget to thumbs up and also subscribe so you can stay up to date with everything that we post, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, guys.